My name is Sam Amalemba Manyonyi. I'm from Kenya, Nairobi. Grew up in Kenya, went to school in Nairobi, went to Lenana Secondary School, worked in Nairobi for a few years before I came to UK to do my studies at uni. In Nairobi, I was there till about 18, 19 years old. I even had a year working for the government in the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism. And then played a bit of music, which is something that I've always liked. We formed a band, a young band. It was a hobby, it wasn't a career. So we were told to go and find careers. So we went looking, and I came here to do business studies in the 70s. After that, I worked for the Commonwealth Secretariat, which is the United Nations of the Brits. And then I spent 7 years there. Got married in this country. I've had 2 children, 4 children at the count we're at now. Big girls, all grown up. And right now I'm up into doing other things, not working for somebody else, I'm working for myself. I deal a lot of my time with the youth in Tottenham, Haringey, North London. That's the main areas I'm in. But in the past 4 or 5 years, I've dabbled into writing because I've always wanted to write. And since my children have been home, seldom they've been to Kenya, I decided I need to tell them my story, the way I grew up, where I grew up, and how, and what we enjoyed when we were younger, and up to their age where they are now. So by doing so, I discovered other people wanted to read the same stories, and they were talking about the same things. So I decided, why not write a book? So I wrote a book about that, and that's why I'm here today, to try and share it with you. And thank you, Jay, for having me over here for this. The book is called Becoming. It was published in 2012. It's now available on Amazon and other places like that, but more of that soon.
Yeah, so the book, Becoming, is actually a story of you becoming what?
Oh, Becoming is, it stays, if you look at the cover of the book, you'll see Becoming ... and then exclamation mark. So we haven't reached there yet. I haven't become, I'm not yet that thing I was becoming. So this is the way to becoming. So I let it covers my younger years from the first day at school, primary school, when I went to school in Ivonda in Kakamega area. That's where I went to school in Idaho district. So my first day at school, it's all short stories about little bits of my life that were milestones that formed who I am today. And remembering that, wanting to write my own story, I found these ones were more interesting. They were funnier in some parts and some were sad, but still there were lessons to be learned from each story. And that's why I wrote it. I didn't just write it. I wanted the children to ask questions and compare with their lives and what they're doing and where they're going and how come I'm here and not in Idaho or Nairobi. So the stories start from that until I was in my adolescence, about 13, 14.
Yeah.
It covers those years and the experiences then. Yeah, so I'm becoming. I haven't become yet. I went to Lenana. First of all, I was at Upper Hill for 2 years, and when my mother died in 1970, I was just beginning school. So we had to find a place because Dad couldn't look after us. We had 9 children. By then, my sisters were married off, 3 of them, so there was another 6 children still left in school. So Dad my father was looking for a school that would take care of me, and he found a place at Lenana, but I was in a day school before that. It is a posh school of the day because the previous name was Duke of York school. So the Yorkist, it's an extension of what the colonial government and people who were there before used to send their children, schools that were comparable to the public schools here. And so they built schools that could accommodate their children.
Okay, so we get that. Okay, let us go back to the writing. At the back there, the viewers actually can see you have got another book called Snake Amongst Shadows. Tell us about that.
Snake Amongst Shadows is a book that I edited last year. And a friend of mine, Chimi, we call him Chima, but his real absolute name is Chimai Jem Ifeanyi Ezechuku. He's from Nigeria, but grew up in UK. He wrote a book on private investigators, a PI. And it's a different genre from what people are used to. He read Chinua Achebe, he's read Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who are the same people who influenced me. And yet, he's gone and written a private investigator story. I find that a different area altogether. It's not traditional, and there are not too many of us who write that kind of story. But he was influenced very early, if you read the introduction and acknowledgements, by people he saw when we were growing up. The comic books, the James Hadley Chase novels, and all the other investigative ones, and then superheroes, Superman, all the others, The Saint. These are programs we used to get because our TV industry didn't have programs to put out apart from Waandishi wa Uliza, which is one or two things, or news, and Likimani cooking, right? So there wasn't much. So they used to buy all these programs from abroad to show us, and that's what we grew up with. It was the same in Nigeria. So he's written this book. When I read it, I went, yeah, it makes sense to me. It's quite good. And that's why I decided to go into it. It's a wonderful book. It's also available on Amazon as well at the moment with mine as well. Chimi is London-based, Tottenham-based. And he's quite available around. So if you want, you can go and check him on Amazon, or I'll give you a blog spot that you can go to later on.
Okay, good. Now let us come back to London. You have been here since the 70s.
Yes.
What has been your experience of living in London?
London life. First of all, when I came, I went to the south of England. I was in Brighton for 4 years before I moved to London. London isolates people. It doesn't, we don't form communities. London seems to isolate us. It keeps us, people start looking inward instead of outward. We are used to enjoying life with friends and visiting families and people coming to you, but because of the constraints of London, the weather doesn't help either, I should add. People don't do what they used to do. We used to have parties in the 80s with the High Commissioner and other places, but even that's gone now because people stop attending. It's not fun anymore. But living, coming from Kenya to UK and then from Brighton to London, I find it was a hustle. Everybody's in a rush to go to places. Where they're going, I wasn't sure. Yeah, so I didn't want that. I didn't like it. We play the game. We join them, but we find they're not going the direction we want. So living in London has been difficult, but it's been made easier. You need a job, you need friends, you need places to go to of interest to maintain your livelihood, to maintain your spirit. It's very difficult. Mine has always been, as you know, music. And I've always attended. I like live music. I love entertainment from any direction. And more so with people that I know in this country, people I've known from home who've moved here, who play music. It keeps me alive. Up to today, I still listen to Otis Redding. Right?
Yeah.
I still listen to Kabasele. I still listen to, Masengo. I still listen to people like Fadhili Williams. I still listen to all of that, all of them. So sometimes it's to remind you of where you've been or where you're coming from, because we have a wealth of history behind us. We'll always have that. People try and cut it off from us, but I grew up in Kenya. I can never forget that, and it will never come out of me because I've been here. That's London to me. Sometimes I forget the city.
Why do you think that London isolates people?
Because London on isolation is because of how we have to live, the work people have to do, the places, the few places that you can go and have fun in, unless you create your own, which is what we're trying to do now. But if I go back a little ways, it's worse now than it used to be, if I'm truthful. In the 70s, I know everybody will say cliche. Everybody's 10 years was better than the last 10 years, so everybody will say that. But to tell you the truth, there were things to fight for. There were causes that were going. There are countries that were not independent. There was apartheid. We've just lost Mandela. We forget how far he came. We were fighting for that. Free Nelson Mandela in the 70s. We were fighting for Zimbabwe then, it was Rhodesia. If you, you know, the countries were not free. Mozambique had only just got their freedom and places like that. Angola was still going through its troubles. So as we see things, Grenada in the Caribbean was going through throes of its own. When we were here, there were things that linked us as black people. Right now, it's as if people don't work together to make a movement forward. There are groups, yes, I'll admit. There are certain groups in East London, South London, and even here in Tottenham that come up with programs. But what I see is every time you go to the meeting, you find the same faces talking the same thing. It's not growing. Otherwise, we'd have a huge party by now. So, where I say isolate, it seems to be reducing rather than expanding. And that's why I say people don't have the zeal. There's no causes that are seemingly important enough to bring everybody out. The last one, apart from the recent Mark Duggan shooting, Stephen Lawrence's death, was the last big, and it had to take some young person to die to bring that up. No, we used to come out and revolt about the unions. We used to come out and rebel about the policies, the government, you know. But now it's as if we've been reduced to fighting for ourselves. Everybody's fighting in an isolated way. So instead of fighting together. And that's why I say London is isolating, because the evidence is there to show that there's isolation. Another thing, there's a high rate of growth in mental illness. We're not talking about people going mad, just isolation, depression, anxiety, where your next check is coming from, if you'll have a job tomorrow. If you sign on, people are pushing you to do A, B, C, D before you get your money. And if you don't get nothing. The rent people want their money, the council wants his council tax, the car wants his licensing, road tax, you know, it's tax, and yet salaries are not going up. So, but yet I don't see the fight.
Do you think is it because that isolation and the lack of identifying black people identifying with themselves, is it because now there's too much freedom because they can buy their own house, they can go to school with do you think that might be?
I suppose there is, because now instead of having more, if I may use, more white people in the school that you're going to and less black people, the tables have turned a little bit. Now you've got more black kids in school with less, or in the classroom, let's say, if you're measuring from a class. Whereas before, you'd be the only black guy in there or the only white. But now it's the other way around. It's more, and you're getting cultural balance. There are people from all over the world here now. You got people from Middle East, you got people from Asia, you got people from Indonesia, you got people from Europe now, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, you got people from all over the world, South America. The Caribbean is no longer just the Caribbean, it includes South America too. You got Americans here, you got Mexicans here, Venezuelans here. So it's become a more multicultural place. But I don't think the multiculturalness has brought people together. It's every group for themselves. If you talk about our own community, there are people doing things and very interesting things. There are groups even here in Haringey that are doing quite business. Cultural groups who do dancing, drumming, the Ghanaian dancers, Ugandan dancers, you got musicians. who actually provide lessons. And I saw somebody providing lessons for Yoruba. I saw somebody who's trying to teach Eritrean language here. And I saw Amharic being taught some places. So there are little snippets of things happening, but the togetherness is still missing.
Africans,
Mhm.
are we together here in the UK or Europe? Well, let us not go for Europe,
Yeah.
London.
Okay, let's talk about the African. The way, from my perspective, from my opinion, I feel not, because we used to help each other. If Zambia had problems, they had some people you can go demonstrate against. If when the apartheid was there, we all went to the South African High Commission in the Strand and the Trafalgar Square. But now, like you said, maybe there is too much freedom. Maybe you can get what you wanted. You can get the food you wanted. You can get your matoke now. You can actually have any shop. You can buy nuts. You can buy chili sauce. You can buy any of them from abroad. And yet, we see each other every day. How many of us greet each other really? Even just Jambo or Bergani, how are you? Greet. No. We don't want people to look into us. And we don't want to look into other people's, because they remind us of ourselves. Instead of helping, we're shutting down. Who's doing business, who's not doing business, what kind of business, hairdressing, shop, barbers. We want restaurants, we want people to do business in the city, we want people who are doing diversified things. Media, we are lacking in that. As much as we have TV stations and outlets, we're not seeing them out in the main. Nobody knows about them. So you get a very isolated group of people who watch these programs. So I want it to be wider. Now you have people from Congo, we have people from Kenya, you have good people from Tanzania. We are all here in Haringey. Yet, who will tell me if they have attended any function from any other group in the last 6 months? All right, properly. Go there and enjoy, and you know the people, and you shake hands, and you enjoy their music and their food. I don't think so. I've been in touch with 2 Ugandan groups here. I actually joined them. I've been in touch with one of the Kenyan guy who's bringing music from Kenya to here. I've touched on West African group, which I know, but that's about it. So togetherness in the African community, what are we together for? What are we heading for? There's no purpose, there's no spirit, there's no reason to come together. Yeah? But then we keep hearing on TV, African community in North London, the East African community, and there. We don't have that. I don't know what community they are referring to.
Do you think your book Becoming, if someone read it, might find a common interest or find something that will touch on this idea of being together? Or
The thing, Becoming as a book, when I first launched it in 2012, I had a big group of people who came to the book launch, and they're from all over the place. What the stories did for these people was somebody identified. There's a guy from Jamaica who grew up in Jamaica who identified with one of the stories, and he was openly moved by it. They're simple stories. If you read just for reading, it can be, it's just you read it like a child. But as a grown up, it should take you back to your own childhood. This is why I did the story. And you have to reason, what has that part of your childhood, how has it impacted on your life today? In the environment you're in, how are you functioning because of what you were as a child? Or have we forgotten all that? And if you do remember, what's so different about the children of today and the children of that time? They're still children, they're still learning. So if we have this lovely information with us, where we're doing creation with our hands, not on a computer, digitally or on the phone, we had transistor radios, we had sticks, we had tires, we had what do you call them, cloth hangers to make wheels. We had all that. We created. And if you gave any child, and I can bet you anywhere, If you take this other stuff away and give him those tools, we're human beings. We'll come up with something.
I'm concerned about Africans getting together. Instead of talking, this African community, but doing nothing.
Yes.
What do you really think we can do?
Oh, getting together means actually getting in touch with each other and forming groups or forums or some kind of discussion areas where we find out what's going on, First of all, we have to know what's going on. We don't know whether it's wrong or right, or because there's no judgment. Back home, there's always somebody around your shoulder. What are you doing? Eh? Does your father know you're here? We don't have that. There's no check. There's no reference point. Everybody's independent, which is not a bad thing. But you can be independent in a community by contributing what you have to the community. So if we form groups that discuss ways forward, instead of saying my child he's not doing good at school, somebody will be there telling you, yeah, mine was like that, we did this and we did that. Or send him to me like an uncle, we'll talk. So this is what I'm talking about. Let's form a community. We don't have one. The community involves everyone. We want everybody to join in. Good, bad, innocent or not innocent, they're part of what makes a community. Then when we grow together. Because otherwise, whether we like it, we fall, whether we like it or not, we'll fall together as a black or African community. Because without cohesion and understanding, there's nothing to help us move forward. We'll drop as a community. And that's how I see it.